You have to go back to 2015, I think, for the last time that Guardiola lost 4 games in a row. That was with Bayern Munich. Is this just a blip? Is there reason to worry?
Yeah, there are some causes for concern. I mean, you're looking at the best player in the world, obviously not on the side. That does affect anyone. It affects Real Madrid. It affects Liverpool. It affects anyone. And Rodri being out creates massive spaces in the midfield. Kovacic has not got the legs. He's a very good footballer on the ball, technically very, very gifted. So is Bernardo. So is Phil Foden. Even Mateus Nunes, fantastic on the ball. But the amount of spaces off the ball, it was absolutely, defensively speaking, embarrassing last night against Sporting Lisbon. And the way that they just played in Gyökeres every single opportunity. It was a massive eye-opening moment. And I think it was opening for Liverpool and Arsenal, because you can get through the Champions League group stages these days, in the league table. You can still lose a few games, so it's not the end of the world. But I think it alludes to a weakness in the Premier League title race as well for Man City.
Yeah, and a bit of a growing trend, because they were 1-0 up at half-time. They missed a lot of chances. How worrying is that for you, seeing them do that?
I think as long as you're creating chances, City had a lot of possession yesterday. Phil Foden scored an early goal. I think the midfield is always going to be one of the best midfields in the world. As long as Guardiola is at the club, he's always going to promote a midfield that keeps the ball, creates chances. Savinho getting back into the side, fantastic. Haaland still creating lots of opportunities. For me, it's the defense. I think City will always outscore sides and get the ability to get Haaland in the position to score 30 goals a season. We're lucky to say that as a fan base. It's the defensive unit that has to change for City, and a lot of it is down to injuries, which Pep Guardiola can't necessarily control. But a massive part of it, I think, is also figuring out the midfield ahead of him, because Kovacic isn't able to get the pressing in the midfield isn't getting tight enough to players, and Sporting Lisbon were able to just get on the half turn, play balls in behind the centre backs so easily. It was like a knife through butter, and something has to change in the midfield, as well as hoping that the likes of John Stones, Ruben Diaz, Nathan Ake can all get back to full fitness.
And of course, we all know that Erling Haaland is one of the best strikers in the world. Do you think he's going through his toughest spell since joining the club?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's got a lot of players that are trying to play balls into him short. He isn't getting the crosses that I think he needs. I think he needs a lot of first-time crosses into the box. At the start of the season, it was Doku and Savinho playing alongside him, and he was having the best start in the history of English football. If you look at certain kind of periods of time, it was an unbelievable amount of goals he scored in the first 8 weeks, and it's dried up since then. I think this kind of reliance on Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan, Mateus Nunes. I mean, a lot of it is down to injuries as well. But a lot of these guys, they don't want to lose the ball. They want to keep it side to side. It's very, very flat. And Erling Haaland isn't able to come short like Harry Kane. He isn't able to link up play in the same way maybe Mbappe is, or other kinds of strikers. He needs things first time around. He needs things instinctive, and it's not the same. And his goals have dried up. But then also he gets the penalty. He got a penalty. It was very cheap, in my opinion. It was a cheap penalty. I think Sporting Lisbon deserved it to maybe not go into the back of the net. It felt a little bit hollow getting the penalty. But nonetheless, you have to score the penalty. And City fans, for so many years, Riyad Mahrez missing penalties, Ilkay Gundogan missing penalties, De Bruyne, and now we've got Haaland, and you think he should not be missing penalties. He really shouldn't have a player of his caliber sort of smashing it into the crossbar. You want a little bit more. So the only thing you can say is that the Champions League, the format is that it's not the worst result in the world, because you can still pick up points and stay in the competition. I think it's more concerning because Brighton come up next, and Brighton are an absolutely unbelievable side in terms of how they keep the ball. It could be a similar result against Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Brighton there. It is worth putting things into perspective. City, they're just 2 points off the league leaders, Liverpool. But how crucial is it that they get a win at Brighton on Saturday?
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, 4 in a row losses for Guardiola is basically unheard of. It's defensively, I think it's the worst the club have been since his first season at the club, when he had a very old Kolarov, a Bakary Sagna, Fernando in midfield. It wasn't his side. This is probably this is a transitional season for Guardiola. It remains to be seen if that transition, he'll see that out and extend his time at Man City. I don't think you can afford to lose to Brighton, because if it was just Arsenal in the title race, like Arsenal lost to Newcastle, I think they're really poor. I think they're really bogged down by what happened in the last couple of years, the way they threw 2 Premier League titles away, in my opinion. But this Liverpool side, the resurgence of Arne Slot, the way they performed in the Champions League last night, the way they can rotate their side, they're making 4 or 5 subs a game. Everyone is included. Everyone's on very, very good form. If you end up going 5, 6, 7 points behind this Liverpool side, they're the only side to have won the Premier League in the last 7 years that isn't Man City. They got the experience. Van Dijk's still at a world-class level. Salah's at a world-class level. Alisson comes back, and they're even better when you look at December and January, February. If you go 5, 6, 7 points behind, you have to beat Brighton on the weekend, and it's a really, really tough game. If Liverpool weren't in the form that they're in, and if Liverpool weren't above City, I wouldn't be that concerned. But ultimately, you have to beat Brighton, and then obviously City play Liverpool in a few weeks as well.